Hello everybody, I'm TheWerdOfRa, and this is part 2 of the Modular Routers Mod Spotlight. In the first part, we talked about the sending and receiving module MK1, the filter module, the MK2 sending receiving module, the flinger module, speed upgrades, the sound muffler. We didn't really talk about this, the Regex filter, which we will talk about, I guess, in this one. It's kind of a little powerful and it's a little hard to use, so I don't really recommend people tinker with it too much unless they want to do a little bit of homework out of game to kind of figure out how to work with Regex. Regex is a system of using the item name to filter, and so you can do things like this particular Regex filter is set up to filter by the word or in the end of the word. So things like copper ore or iron ore or other ores should filter. Unfortunately, ORE could find itself in other names and be filtered. So it's still not a great filter, and again, I don't want to get into too much about Regex other than this is an example of how to filter ores. // B or $/. But we won't spend too much more time other than that, other than to say that this is a good example of how to use a Regex filter even if you're not all that competent with it. So let's start part 2. In part 2, we're going to go over the dropper module, the detector module, and the redstone augment. So the dropper module is, again, you can filter it, and you have to choose a side that you're going to drop out of. Now the good news is, with the dropper module, it doesn't have any angular velocity, which basically means the items drop straight down exactly where you would expect them to drop, unlike the dropper in vanilla Minecraft, which kind of throws them out at random angles and sometimes you miss your mark. So this dropper is really good for that. The other thing it's really good for is you can do entire stacks at once. So you can drop, you can load an entire stack and you can drop it all at once so that you can have really mass quantity items processing. So this will be our dropper. This is going to be our puller module, and it's going to use the detector module. The detector module allows you to send a signal of strength of your choice, and you can do strong, weak, you can filter. You can also decide whether, if it's on an X, it's all sides submit the redstone signal of 15, for example. Or you can say only out of the top submit a redstone signal of 15. And you can obviously have multiples of these, and as I mentioned in the part 1, the logic of the item router is that it reads from the left to the right. So what you can do is you can check along the way for different objects. So this object is checking for cobblestone. Maybe this one could check for, I think this was coal. Maybe this one can check for, the actual extruder module. Anyway, and then you can submit different redstone signals. So this one will be a 10, this one will be a 5, and then based on how strong I think this was 15, so based on how strong the redstone signal is, well, basically you can make some kind of logic of what happens next. So that's just something that you can do with the detector module. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull from this chest, we're going to pull into this module, we're going to check to see if it's cobblestone or not. If it's cobblestone, we're going to send strength 15 signal out and into this item router with the sender module MK2. Once we're in this module router, we're going to have the sender module either, we're going to show this logic. So either we're going to drop based on a redstone signal, or we're going to send. So anything that does not get a redstone signal is going to be sent into this chest, and everything that does get a redstone signal is going to drop and be voided in the lava. And it's always going to drop first because this is on the left and send is on the right. So, okay, so let's see when we take the iron and the cobblestone, what will happen. We expect to see the iron not getting voided, but the cobblestone will get voided. So it's pulling the cobble out first, and I kind of wanted it to pull the iron out first. There we go. We see the iron getting put in here, and then once the iron's done, you'll see the cobblestone getting voided in here. So this is a way where I could use this to maybe go mining and start processing my ores by getting the cobble, maybe instead of voiding it, it can, you know, go to, maybe a drawer or something, and all my ores can start going into the ore processing system that I might have. Actually, I don't want that in there. And that's going to lead into this module. So this module is the player module, and the player module is assigned to the player who crafted it. You're supposed to be able to shift right click to assign it to yourself. I've been having trouble doing that, but I'm also playing with a modded server, so I have a feeling that without having the 100+ mods I've got, it probably would have worked. But either way, when you craft it, it will be assigned to you under owner, and I can show you that I've done that here with the owner being TheWerdOfRa. What this is basically it interfaces with the player's inventory, and it can either be your main inventory, your armor slots, your offhand slot, or your vanilla Minecraft Ender inventory, not the modded ones that need color coding and all of that. And what you can do is you can either go from the player to the item router, or from the item router to the player. So for example, at the armor slot, maybe you want to push fresh armor items onto your player so that you're never out of armor. In this example, what I've decided to do was filter on ores and cobblestone. I want them to come from the player's inventory into the router. And then once in the router, I'm going to use my sender module, MK3, which is the highest tier sender module, which is interdimensional and has no range limit. I'm going to send that into this chest, which is then going to start my ore processing system. So let's pretend that I'm mining. Oh, I need to make sure this is on. Alright. Oh, I already had some things in my inventory. There we go. So let's pretend I'm mining. I'm picking up new items, ores, and cobblestone. The ores get put in here. We originally had 6, we now have 9. I've picked up 3 more, and all the cobblestone got voided. One thing to note is that I could have just used the void module instead of the dropper over lava. The main reason is the void module is pretty self-explanatory. It'll void the item based on, you know, whatever criteria you use, filters for example. But I wanted to show the dropper module because of the no velocity, as well as obviously more people are going to find the dropper module more useful than the void module. But there it is. The other thing I didn't really discuss was the redstone augment. We're not really properly using the redstone augment. What the redstone augment lets you do is it allows you to have control over the different sub-processes in a different way than the rest of the item router. So the item router has commands on redstone. So for example, redstone mode always. So the router is always on. But in our example, we put the redstone augment into the dropper module. So you'll notice that this went away over here. There's no interface for redstone. When I put it in, there becomes an interface, and you can cycle that low, high, never, pulsed, and always. So this allows you to have a particular module operate in a different way than the rest of the router is going to operate to redstone. Now, I could have just made the entire router operate the way we wanted it to because this is the only functionality, but if you were to have a lot of these modules in here doing different things, again, maybe you're going to filter based on the strength of the signal, then you would want to have that kind of fine control over your different modules. So that's going to be the dropper, the redstone output module, the redstone augment, the void module, and the player module. All very powerful things. I'm going to turn this off. Oops. And let's head into the next room. So finally, we're going to talk about, well, this is the final room. There's still much to talk about. We're going to talk about vacuum module, the fluid module, the fast pickup augment, the XP vacuum augment, and the fluid transfer upgrade. So the vacuum module operates exactly how you think it would. You put this module in here, and it pulls from a range of 6 away, and it pulls it into the item buffer. And then you have to somehow get it out of the buffer using a sender module, hoppers, item conduits, and you can change the range. We didn't talk about this, but there are range upgrades and downgrade augments, and what they do is they allow you to have fine-tuned control over how far you want this the vacuum module to function from. So you might want to put the downgrade module in the vacuum module so that it only pulls adjacent to the vacuum module and not an entire room. You might want to put the upgrade if you do want to pull from the entire room. So what we have here is a mob spawner. It's going to spawn some mobs that are going to drop loot, and we want to pick up that loot with this vacuum module. We want to put that loot into the crystal chest. In addition to picking up loot, we're going to have the vacuum module with an XP vacuum augment in it, which allows it to pick up the XP that is dropped by the mobs. Now, there's 2 things to know about the XP vacuum augment. The first is that if there is a tank in the buffer, it will pick up liquid XP. If there isn't a tank, it will pick up the bottled XP, and we'll demonstrate that when this is running. The last thing to note is that if you have fluid inside of the item router, you're going to want to get that fluid out, and you're going to need to use the fluid module to do that. The fluid module allows you to pick a side, decide whether it's coming in or out, and you can even, if you want, set lower numbers than 1,000 millibuckets. You cannot go higher with the base module. The only way to increase how much fluid movement you have is through the fluid transfer upgrade. Even though you might think a speed upgrade would help you move the fluid faster, it doesn't. You're limited by 1,000 millibuckets per second, no matter how many operations are carried out in that time frame. I believe that's what I understand of the mod author. Either way, the mod author says the only way to increase your volume is by adding the fluid transfer upgrade, not the speed upgrade. Okay, so we're going to grab liquid XP, put it into this tank. We're going to grab the items that are dropped and put it into this tank. Let's see that in action. Alright, so you can see that they're dying. You can see that they're getting items in here. And then we can see that liquid XP is coming out. Now, let's take the tank out, and we see that bottles of enchanting are coming out. So, depending on whether you want to get bottles of enchanting or liquid XP, now it's going back up again, it decides whether you put a tank in there or you put nothing. And then all the items got collected here, and all the XP got collected in our tank that we sent it to. The only other thing to note is that there's this item called the Fast Pickup Augment. I had this installed in the vacuum hopper here, and basically the vacuum hopper only operates on a certain frequency of operations, and the Fast Pickup Augment allows you to pick up items as soon as they enter the world, and you don't have to have that delay. So obviously if you were to have a high functioning mob farm, you'd want to have that in there. This is our wall of shame, the different modules and augments that we didn't talk about, but you know, they're pretty self-explanatory, which is why I didn't really make a demo for them. So we have the Fast Pickup Augment. We also have the Pickup Delay Augment. So just like how Botania has different operations where you want items to be in the world for a limited amount of time because maybe something else needs to pick them up or something needs to happen to them, you would use this module. We already kind of talked about the range up augment and the range down augment. It only adds or subtracts one range per augment. So if you're going to want to increase up to your full range, I think the range of the vacuum module, it's a max of 12. So if you want to get to the maximum of 12, then you need to get 6 range upgrades. One other thing to note about the vacuum augment, since we're here, when you have it on the all side, it goes in all directions around the vacuum augment. When you make it directional, then it's still the same size space, but it's now the vacuum module's at the edge of that space and it's only in the up direction. So for example, with a radius of 6, that's a total of a 13 by 13 around the vacuum module. Now that space is going to be, the bottom of that space is going to be the top of our item router, and then 13 by 13 up, left, straight with the sidedness. So you can decide to only pick up in front or behind or something like that. Sorry for that digression. Okay, so that was the upgrade, range and up and downgrade. You've got the stack augment, which allows you to interact with whole stacks. And you've got the regulator augment, which allows you to have control over how much of an item is kept in an inventory. So this might be good, an example for keeping a certain amount of food on hand on your character with the player augment module. This is the placer module. This is the breaker module. The placer module places a block in the world. The breaker module breaks the block in the world. It breaks it as if it had been mined by a player. So you can actually enchant this with Silk Touch or Fortune or any other enchantment, mining enchantment, and then that will allow you to kind of break that block. Next is the stack upgrade. So the difference between these two, this is a stack augment. It augments, a module, for example. So if you were to have this, you could put the stack upgrade, well, not in this particular module actually, because you can only place one block at a time. But the point is that you can put them in modules to increase how much items that they can pull or push, and also you can globally do that with the router upgrade. So trying to show the difference here. The stack augment, putting it up here, affects every action of every module that can interface with stack upgrades. Putting it in here only impacts the vacuum module. So I don't know if that's quite clear, but basically it just gives you more granular control. Finally is the security upgrade and the blast upgrade. The blast upgrade prevents your modular router from being blown up by creeper blasts and all that kind of thing. And the security upgrade locks your the item router to whoever is on the security upgrade. I'm sorry, the owner of the security upgrade. So that if you were to have, again, your player module in here, you wouldn't want to have just anybody having access to that, especially on a PvP server maybe. So maybe you'd want to put this and this in there. That way only you can own it, only you can look into it. People can break the block, but they cannot change your settings in there. And then finally is the mod filter and the inspection filter. So the mod filter is filtered based on any kind of mod. So if I were to put in a router up here, then it would filter on modular routers. If I were to put in this candy cane, it would filter on silent gems. So now modular routers and silent gems are being filtered for on this mod filter. The other one is the inspection filter. The inspection filter allows you to have a lot of control over things like, I want to only pull my sword out when the durability is, less than 50 or something like that. And then you can do that. You can do fluid level, energy level, enchantment, food value. So it's a pretty powerful mod that you can use in conjunction with other filters to filter for, again, maybe your sword being a certain amount of damage, maybe your armor, maybe you want to have a certain amount of food on hand, something to that effect. And with that wraps up part 2 of modular routers. I hope you enjoyed this series, and if you did, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. And this has been The Word of Ra, and take care, everybody.